Hello and welcome to another episode of Bum with Wrench. I'm your host Daniel as always. And on today's episode we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to switch gears and get into something I hope is a little bit more fun for you guys. The Camaro I'm still working on, and I'll continue to work on that. It's just boring to film. So gonna take a break on that one, and basically what you're going to see is jump forward, electrical done. Time to finish up a few little things under the hood, start the car, burn the tires off of it, that kind of stuff. So, but what we're going to switch gears to is the red 66 Ford Galaxie 7-liter. It has a 352. My 65 hardtop has a 352. The Galaxie 7-liter has a 7-liter in it, 428. When we purchased the car, it came with a lot of documentations. I pulled the file on the car, and basically the documents said that it had a machine shop built engine in it. Never ran right. It always just kind of ran okay-ish. You know, always felt like there was something off with the car. The person that I got it from is a family friend. He's basically family. He knew there was something wrong with it too. And when I purchased the car from him, he told me, "Look, I'm not done with the car." I knew he wasn't done with the car, so don't get mad at me. I knew the car needed work. The motor just didn't run right, but it did come with this nifty piece of paper. I'm not going to show you the other side of this because I'm not going to poo-poo on anybody's engine shop, because honestly I don't know if this paperwork right here, what it says, is the actual engine that I have, because, you know, who knows, right? So we're going to skip that first page and then we'll dip into the internals. Now, the motor doesn't run quite right. It runs, it idles, it drives, doesn't smoke. It just has a lack of power. It doesn't run like a 428 should, right? You should be able to take a 428 in a bone stock configuration and from a dead stop nail it and have it just light the back tire up. That's pretty easy. That's not asking much of it. This one won't do that. Would never do that. And then it does accelerate. Like I said, it does run okay. But when it gets to that higher RPM, pushing up $4,000, it really kind of just falls on its face. Has no power after that. The owner told me, you know, when we first bought it, he jumped in it to take it up to the shop from his house, and he was getting on the freeway, and there was a Hyundai Elantra or Hyundai Accent or some Hyundai, I think it was an Elantra. He said he was getting on the freeway and he went to, you know, get around this car, so he nailed it, and that Hyundai nailed it and just walked away from him. So we laugh about that. That's ongoing now for, you know, a few years. And so when I started talking to him about what I wanted to do and figure out what's wrong with this car, he told me build it so it'll beat a Hyundai Elantra. So that's the goal. You know, I'm going to take a paint stick and write on the windshield Hyundai Elantra, circle with a line through it. That's our goal. Honestly though, I mean, if you think about it, you know, back in the day when this thing was produced, it made a couple hundred horsepower. It really didn't make a lot of horsepower then, and it was still a 4,800 pound car. A Hyundai Elantra makes about the same horsepower, probably maybe more, and is half the weight of that car. So it there's a possibility that you'll still get beat by a Hyundai Elantra. But the goal is to not get beat by a Hyundai Elantra with a 428 and a 66 Galaxie. So we're going to fix this. We're going to make it run good. I've put together a list of parts. I have already done a bunch of research on this. We're going to go over that together, and I'm just going to start where I started from in the beginning so you can kind of see my thought process and where I was going with this. So I wanted to really kind of learn what I had before I start really digging into it. Understanding where you're at and what's going on is the most important thing when you're trying to solve problems, especially in a motor that runs okay, it just doesn't run quite right. So in doing so, I pulled all the paper out. Now I'm taking for granted that what this says is actually what's in it. Some of the parts that I can see line up, the cylinder heads, intake manifold, that kind of stuff, the easy stuff that you can see lines up with that, but that doesn't mean anything. I wanted to see what the internals were. So I started looking around, wanted to know what pistons it has. It has a Ross Racing forged piston, right? With this piston, you should be getting about 10-to-1 compression on average, we'll call it. So I know what piston's in. It's got a good piston. Looking through here, I can't tell what connecting rods or crankshaft is in the motor because they're not listed here, which tells me that they're probably either a stock connecting rod and crank setup, and or something that the guy who had the engine built brought to the machine shop. So again, kind of just, figuring that they're stock components, which is not a bad thing. I mean, we're not looking at a high horsepower, 428 here. It's not making 900 horsepower. It's just a kind of beefed up stock engine, we'll call it. So can't find anything on that. What I did find on the rotating assembly is one, that it's internally balanced, which is awesome. And two, the crank was ground 10-10. So rods and mains were down 10, which tells me that the crank was in good shape when they dropped it off. Because if they only took 10 off of it, that's good. It doesn't tell me what it started at. So it may have already been ground, and their 10-10 number is saying they're going to take 10 off of whatever it already was. Don't know. So that's something to take a look at. I wanted to know what camshaft was in it. Based on their information here, it's got a Comp Cams Extreme Cam in it. So it's a 262, 270 duration, 513, 520 lift. Not bad. So decent camshaft. Little beefed up over what stock is. Now, just for giggles here, I based the camshaft in my 352 off of a 428. So these numbers are pretty close to what a 428 would be. So a 428 would be like a 256, 492 lift. A 256 duration, 492 lift. And this is a 262, 270, 513, 520. So it's got a little bit more of a bumpy cam in it, right? So that's pretty cool. And this kit did come with, it came with its own lifters as well. So that's good. Cam and lifter kit. So that's what I should expect to see in it, which is good. And then I know what heads are on it. They're Edelbrock Performer RPM heads, which those are, I was just looking them up because I'm pulling all the parts. I'm getting a parts list together for what I'm going to put into this thing. Summit, this site really bothers me. I'm looking for something and I type in what I'm looking for in the search engine. I qualify it by what engine I have, and it shows me whatever parts they want to show me, right? And I'm like, no, but I want this manufacturer, or I want this specific. There you go. I got it out. Don't worry. Specific, part number. So can't find it on their stupid website through their search engine. I throw in the part number because I went to the manufacturer's website. Threw in the part number. Boom, pops right up in stock even. Summit drives me nuts every once in a while. So the cylinder heads that are in it, they are 72 cc chamber, 170 cc intake runner. So not bad. They're decent cylinder heads, I mean, they're Edelbrock. It's not a trick flow or, you know, airflow research or, you know, anything else. They're just, you know, good heads. Really nothing wrong with them. So, and again, it has the Performer RPM intake on it as well. So what I should see out of this engine should be a pretty decent motor. I should be seeing somewhere around, guessing based on the parts, around 400 horsepower is what I'm guessing. And this thing runs like it's 200 horsepower. So one of the reasons why we wanted to put fuel injection on it, we thought maybe we could just help it out a little bit. We thought maybe it was falling out on the top end. I was looking into some timing and stuff back in the day. Now, moving into what I think is actually wrong with it. When we first got it and we first started doing a bunch of investigative work on it, what we found is the rocker arm assembly that was on it, which I can show you which one it was, because it's in the paperwork. It was too big. It was like a race competition. It was just too gnarly, is what it was. It's this here. Comp cams, ultra gold, arc shaft mount, aluminum rocker system, Ford FE engines. And so when you start doing a little bit of research on this, it tells you that, you know, there's things you have to check for clearance and all kinds of other stuff, because this is supposed to be for like a race application. It's not for just kind of warmed over street engine, right? What they ended up doing was, to make it fit, is they ended up chopping some of it up. They cut it to make it fit valve covers and clear clearances and that kind of stuff. Luckily, they didn't hurt the heads in any way. They just chopped up the rocker arm assembly. So when we pulled it out, we were looking at, because we thought, well, you know, we were just going to adjust the valves. We started looking at it, and what we noticed was the push rods, as they were coming up through the cylinder head, were actually bound on the cylinder head. They were actually touching and binding and scraping, right? Which reminds me, I got to get up. Anyways, so we knew right off the bat, okay, this is a huge problem. You know, the push rods should not be hitting the cylinder head. We did a bunch of research. Again, that's how we found out about what rocker arm assembly was on it. We decided, you know, this is way overkill for this application. Let's just go with a more mild rocker arm assembly. I think what's on it is comp cams. I don't know. I know we put something, just, you know, your basic roller rocker top end on it. I don't think I had put the paper in here for it. I might have. I don't know. Anyways, it was I got it off Summit. It was a nice roller top end, right? So, and then as soon as we put that on, boom, it pulled those push rods right out of, you know, right off the cylinder head. So at that point, it had the clearance it needed. It had everything we needed. So I thought, great, we solved the problem. Still had a lack of power issue, right? So real busy, because I've got 50,000 projects going in the shop. We just kind of let it go, right? We were just like, you know, whatever. So now coming back to it, you know, I'm always going to circle back and try and solve the problem. I figured now is a good time. I'm doing all the Camaro work on the side. I need to make videos for the channel. The videos on the Camaro aren't doing very well, so let's do something fun, right? Let's figure out what's wrong with this 428 and fix it, right? The owner's happy, because he's been complaining about it the entire time. You know, he's like, oh, back in high school I had a 390, it pulled the front end up off the ground, smoked the tires, do all this thing's a dog, doesn't do anything. I agree. So let's fix it. So, first things first, knowing what's in it, which now we know, well, we think we know based on paperwork. Let's go out to the car and take a look at what we actually have and see if we can actually find what's wrong with this motor. All right, guys, let's get out there and take a look. All right, guys, out here at the car. You know, no reason to really move it. I gotta be honest, I cheated. I actually know what's wrong with it, but you guys don't. So I'm just going to walk you through the process of what I did and what I found, right? So we'll start at the beginning. Spark plugs. First place you're always going to start to kind of gauge the, gauge the car, gauge what you got. So let me pull the first 2 cylinders off of both banks. So this is passenger side. Let me see if I can get it. There you go. See, not bad. Really clean, nice. If I remember right, these plugs don't have very many miles on. It's probably got a couple 100 miles on them. But that's enough for you to kind of see what's going on with the engine. Driver's side. Driver's side might be a little bit dirtier, but honestly, it still looks fine. So spark plugs look good. One of the things that this motor had by the previous owner was it had a precision built carburetor. Jet Performance, I believe, did it. They built it specifically for this engine based off of the engine specs and stuff that were given to them from that same sheet that I just read off. So they did a fantastic job. The carburetor ran great. Even though I'm switching it out to Sniper EFI, still ran great. The Sniper EFI, honestly, what you would gain out of that would be reliability, would be no need to tune all the time if it's winter or if it's summer or if it's altitude or sea level or humidity or it does all of that. It makes it so every time you start it, it's got a fresh tune in it, right? Because it's adjusting itself constantly. That's the benefit of fuel injection. And then you go to a Sniper EFI, you put a air cleaner on top of it, can't really tell. So I'm all about EFI. Now on a 66 7-liter, that's kind of a rare car, maybe don't do that, but this car is already modified, so at this point, who cares? Although I do love it that I took the heater box out. It makes all of this so much easier. Anyways, back on topic. Spark plugs look good, right? Next, of course, you're going to want to run compression check, right? So I did compression across all the cylinders. 195, it was anywhere from 180 to 195, right? So we got, a 15 PSI difference, and there was only 2 cylinders that were 180. Most of them were 185 or 195, or I'm sorry, 185 or 190. I think there was only 2 that were, one was 180 and then the other one was 195. Anyways, good numbers. Something that you want to see. You're never going to see perfect balance. That's just, not going to happen. Plus maybe my tool was not seated right or something when I did, who knows. But those are great numbers, right? Compression is fine, which tells me that the bottom end is probably in pretty good shape. The valves are sealing, pretty good shape. So while I was doing the compression check, of course you got to crank the engine over. While I was doing that, I was checking to see how the rocker arms were actually moving up and down in the cylinders. I was expecting to see something that looked weird, right? When they're going up and down. Nope. They all looked fine. So at this point, I'm kind of getting frustrated. Can't really find anything wrong with it, right? So you just continue on with your diagnostics until you finally find something. Well, it didn't take long before I finally found something. Let me reposition you guys so that you can see what's going on. I want to get you in a good position so you can see all of the cylinders, because at that point, the next thing I wanted to check was I was going to do valve lash and set all the rockers up. But before I did that, I wanted to do a simple check and mark all of the push rods and make sure all of them are twisting. Well, that's where I found a problem. So let me get you guys set up and then we'll take a look. And you tell me what you think. Okay, so I know you guys can't see my pretty face because I am so beautiful, so beautiful. But what I did was I put a mark on each of the push rods. Just a black Sharpie. And what I'll do is I'll put a couple, I'll get another color just in case you can't quite see it at home. Let me see, I have black, or I have, you know, black. Oh, that's good. Or I have white. How is white gonna help? No, give it a shot. I'll put a white mark here on just two of these. On these two. I don't know if you can see that better or not. Anyways, so this is a hydraulic flat tappet camshaft. So you should see each one of these rockers twisting, right? They're going to twist fast. They're just going to twist. Well, it's all dependent upon RPM, but when you're cranking, motor not running, you're just going to see them twist. Now at high speeds, they're twisting pretty good, but we're not going to see that. We're only going to see, we should see light, slow twisting. So, got the battery all connected, I think. Yep, looks good. Okay, so let's give it a twist. What I want you to pay attention to is all these marks. Every single one of them's got a mark, and I kind of tried to angle it toward you so that you could see. Now I know you can't see all the cylinders all at once, but you know, go back and rewind and play if you want. So anyways, let's take a look. I'm going to give it a crank for a couple seconds. We'll see what it does. Here we go. So right off the bat, this one didn't twist. This one didn't twist. This one barely twisted. This one moved a couple degrees. This one didn't twist. That one didn't twist. That one didn't twist. That one didn't twist. And the ones that do twist are kind of sporadic. Now what you're seeing, the smoke blowing out, that's the engine oil, oil pressure being built up, it going over the top of the head. There's no spark plugs in the engine, so it's just the compression's blowing the oil everywhere, which is awesome because I got the 124 right next to it. But anyways, let's do another quick little crank and see what we see. Yeah. See, this one's not twisting at all. This one's not twisting at all. That one's twisting, but it's kind of sporadic. That one's not twisting at all. Not twisting at all. Not twisting at all. Not twisting at all. That one I can't tell. This one no. This one no. That one no. That one no. That one's twisting. That one no. That one no. That one no. Okay. So I hope you could kind of see it. I got you guys as close as I could. I zoomed in. Got a very expensive camera with a very expensive lens. So hopefully you could see what I was talking about. I've got 85–90% of the push rods not moving. This is a problem, big problem. The reason the lifters move is because when the cam is rotating and pushing up, pushing down, it wants to continually move. So it's kind of like sanding something. If you sand in the same spot over and over and over and over again, you're going to sand through it, right? But if you're sanding in big patterns, you know, you don't sand through it as quickly. Eventually this stuff does wear out. Metal on metal is gonna, eventually it's gonna wear out, but it's gonna wear evenly. That's the important part. You want it to wear evenly, and when it's sitting in one spot, that cam lobe is grinding away on that lifter, which is bad for a lot of reasons. It's grinding away the bottom of the lifter, which is putting metal parts down into the engine. So at this point, I just kind of stopped because we already know we have a major problem. There's definitely a handful of ways you could fix this, you know. The radiator's just sitting in there. I could pull it out, pull the front of the engine off, pull the camshaft out, put a new cam, lifters, timing gear, you know, timing chain set. gasket, throw it back together, fire it up. Well, if you know my shop, you know I'm not going to do that. Because one, early block 428s are rare. They're expensive, and I'm not going to do that to this engine. I'm going to build it to be a tire shredder. Now this, I don't want anything more than about 450 horsepower out of it, which is, you know, I don't want a crazy thumper. Sorry, I'm still battling colds and stuff. The dust in this place is so crazy that I actually ordered a couple air purifiers and stuff. My nose just goes nuts as soon as I get to work every single day. I tried allergy medication, but that just started messing me up. Anyways, back to this. So now that I know these aren't turning, the crank is not flat, because if you were watching, it was rocking the rockers, right? They were moving. It will go flat. With this problem, it will 100% guaranteed go flat in a short amount of time too. It won't take very long before it'll just wear it completely out. So there's the problem. This is the problem for multiple reasons. If the lifters and the push rods and the whole valve train assembly isn't operating like it should, what you're going to find is going to be performance issues. Exactly what this engine has. It's not going to perform well at high RPM. Exactly what this engine has, because it can't do its job efficiently. It can't do it how it needs to do it. It's being held back because it's trying to grind this groove into a metal part that's just taking away its ability to do its job efficiently. In order to make the horsepower, in order to do all these things, all of these components have to work right up to their specification. They have to work perfectly, flawlessly, to get that good horsepower number out of it, which most engines do. You know, there's no problem with it because it just works the way it was intended and engineered to work. This doesn't. So there's a problem. I could also see if there is a timing issue, which I'm going to do. But to do that, I'm going to pull the motor out of the car. Couple reasons. One, with it grinding away the crankshaft, I know there's metal, right? And I'm not going to just say, well, okay, well, the metal's real fine and the oil filter will pick it up, and no, not going to do that. Because why? It's not a daily driver. I don't need this thing to go to work. You know, it's been dead in the shop for 8 months. You know, why am I going to hurry through it now and blow it back together and potentially have an issue down the road? And knowing that there's metal in the engine, whether or not it be fine little bits or whether it be big chunks, I don't know. What I am going to do when I pull the motor, twist the oil filter off, cut it open, and take a look and see what I've got, right? That'd be a good place to start, because that'll give you a good indicator on how much metal is actually in the engine. Knowing that there's metal in the engine, there's definitely metal in the oil pump, so that's getting changed. Pickup's getting changed. Oil pan's coming off, it's getting washed. The entire engine, I thought about it last night, and I was thinking that I was going to leave the bottom end in the car. Not in the car, I'm sorry, in the engine, meaning I'm going to leave the crankshaft connector rods, pistons in the engine. Not going to do that, because thinking about it last night, if I'm going to go through all the trouble of actually pulling the motor and cleaning everything up, replacing the few parts that I know need to be replaced, why not pull the pistons out, clean them off, scrub them down, soap and water, clean everything up, oil them up the way they should be, put them back in the engine. That would be a fresh starting point for its next life, right? Now, of course, you want to be careful doing that. You want to put all the stuff back in the right locations where they came from, blah, 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 which I'll do. So that's what I'm going to do. Now we're going to pull the engine out of the car, which it's basically disconnected. Nothing's really connected anymore. Got to disconnect the power steering, which I'll just throw that off to the side. Again, pop the radiator out, disconnect the motor mounts and the bell housing, and this thing just lifts right out of the car. Exhaust. So when we go to tear this thing down, we're going to find more problems. Whether or not it be timing issues, I'm going to put a degree wheel on it, make sure, just you want to check every single thing while you're here. Just because I found a problem doesn't mean that I'm going to stop looking for problems. Because you need to continually do that until you get to a point where you've checked, inspected every part, gone over everything with a fine-tooth comb, that you can actually assemble it back again without having to worry about anything, if that makes any kind of sense. So that's what we're going to do. I am going to pull the engine out of this car and disassemble it, inspecting every single part, cleaning every single part, washing it down, soap and water, scrubbing everything down super well. And then we're going to reassemble it with most of its components. The parts that I'm changing, let's go over that real quick. The parts that I'm going to change that I know right now are in my shopping cart that I'm getting ready to push buy on. Cam. What I decided to go with was the Edelbrock camshaft. I figure it was a good combination. Edelbrock took the time to make the cylinder heads and the intake manifold. Why not go with their camshaft that they recommend for this kit, right? So I'm getting their camshaft, I'm getting their timing gear set, which the camshaft that they recommend with this set is actually a little bit bumpier. We'll talk about that later. But, so camshaft, lifters, all from Edelbrock. I need to get the push rod measuring tool, which is basically an adjustable push rod so that you can set up your angle, rocker geometry, right? I need to get that so I can check that to when it goes back together, I know I have the right rocker arm geometry. I don't have to worry about that. According to the paperwork in there, this is the stock length rockers, which doesn't really mean anything. If someone did do the rocker arm geometry, stock length would be fine. However, remember, I changed the rockers on this car. When I changed them, we eyeballed, yeah, it looks right. Put it back together. Right? So I'm going to do the correct way this time. Make sure I get the rocker arm geometry, order the correct push rods because those are getting changed. Changing the oil pump, changing the pickup tube, camshaft, lifters, push rods, timing gear, and then reseal the entire engine, obviously. Nothing needs to go to the machine shop unless I find something on the inside. If I find something on the inside of the motor, like a scarred cylinder wall or something, we'll have to check it out at that point. I'm not expecting to see anything like that. I was going to put a camera down the cylinders and look at it, but why? I'm going to take the heads off, so who cares? I'll figure it out when the head comes off. And then I'm going to put some headers on it. I like the headers that I put on my 352, those Sanderson headers. They work really well, they sound really good, and I think it'll be a nice addition to what I already have to help breathe a little bit better. I've got an awesome EFI going on top. I've got some nice breathing intake manifold and heads. I've got some really nice pistons in there, a good camshaft now going in it. It's got all of these positives, and then I'm choking it with manifolds. So I'm going to put a set of headers on it. They're not that expensive, about $800, $1,000 when you calculate all the bolts and the exhaust gaskets and all that kind of crap. But I think it's worth it. It'll make it sound a little better, perform a little bit better, and really give it that all-around good performance feel. So, but that's going to be next episode, guys. I'm going to end this episode here. I hope you liked this episode. I know it was a lot of me talking still, but I didn't want it to be like the Camaro where it was like, oh, look at me do the compression check. Yeah, it's boring. You don't know how to do a compression check. I could teach my 3-year-old how to do a compression check. I wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of what's going on, and then get into exactly what we need to do with this thing, because I am determined to make it beat a Hyundai Elantra. Even if I got to go rent one and then race the owner in it. I might pull out of the throttle a little bit though. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And as always, guys, until next time.